Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achint. We have, as you can see, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, who's going to talk to us about various different things. Sabse pehle to we'll talk about Bharat's diplomacy. What's happening? Everybody seems to be getting after Bharat. And, Jai Shankar ji has written a new book. I've just started reading it. First chapter is done. Very well written. But he also talks about the same thing. So, opening, let's talk to you. Namaskar, welcome. And I want to ask you about Maldives. What do you think is happening there? Who's behind the Maldives conundrum?
Mhm. Allahu Akbar, and greetings to all our infidel viewers. You're all going to hell, of course. And so, on a serious note, Dekho, there's nothing you can do with small countries. You tell me one big country that doesn't face these kind of inferiority complex driven issues with smaller neighbors. I think it was best summarized by that Mexican president Benito Juarez, after whom Benito Mussolini incidentally was named, who also, suffered from these complexes vis-a-vis France and Germany incidentally. And he used to say, that Mexico's great tragedy was that it was so close to America and so far from God. And so, Maldives' tragedy can be in the Maldivian mind, is that it is so close to India and so far from Allah. Okay? There's nothing you can do about it. You see, you tell me which one of our neighbors has not experienced the same thing. Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Of course, Sri Lanka has now gotten away with that mindset after their economy collapsed thanks to China. Bangladesh
Mm.
got away from that mindset quite some time back, and now they're very happy because they've overtaken us in per capita GDP or whatever, so they don't feel the need. In their mind, they feel they're the big brother now, which I'm totally fine with, as long as you are, comfortable with yourself. But tell me, even in our personal lives, Adi, how many of us, like when you see your neighbor drive past in a Rolls Royce Phantom, don't you feel the pinch to blame him for stuff that really is your own fault that you and I don't have a Rolls Royce Phantom? Of course we do. So this is normal human nature. And see, India used to do it. Every time something went wrong for Indira Gandhi, she used to blame the foreign hand,
Mm.
meaning that was code for the CIA and the American government. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
So this used to happen a lot. Uh, this is how small countries behave. Now, the issue isn't that. The issue is that social media guys put out this comparison between Lakshadweep and Maldives. The Prime Minister never did it. He's been going to Lakshadweep regularly
Yeah.
because there's lots of government schemes being rolled out in Lakshadweep, like in every other part of the country, which is important for them. And he went to monitor that. Now, from there, somebody draws the conclusion that this is to oppose the Maldives, etc., etc. I'd shot it down right then in a tweet. Even before this entire controversy started, I said this has nothing to do with Maldives. This is a sui generis to do with Lakshadweep, and it's been planned months in advance before anything in Maldives happened. The Prime Minister's itinerary is planned 6, 7 months in advance,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's not like somebody just decided to pull some bunny out of the hat or whatever. And then on top of that, what has happened is that some government officials in the Maldives have decided to respond to this official.
Yeah.
Now you tell me, यही होता है अगर तुम रास्ते में से दफली वालों को उठा के उनको मंत्री बना दो कर. Okay, you see, there is the party worker who needs to go out and burn, effigies of Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi and I don't know, Akhilesh Yadav and all of that. But those people can't be made ministers overnight. There
Yeah.
has to be a tempering phase that happens, and these are all what, 28, 29, 31-year-old kids,
Mm.
right, who have suddenly been made junior minister of this and junior minister of that, and they've caused their president a whole load of him. And to his credit with Muizzue, uh, after becoming president, he hasn't used the kind of rhetoric he used before becoming president.
Before
See, candidate
that,
Muizzue,
obviously. Mm.
yeah, candidate Muizzue can do whatever he likes. He can say whatever he likes. There are no real consequences to it. Once you become president, you cannot. Okay? And he's actually walked a very fine line. And he said, we don't want any foreign military presence here. It's not just India. Economic presence, jo chahe kar lo. He didn't kick out the two Taj resorts. There's two Taj resorts out there. Nobody kicked that out. Only the military presence he did not want. But remember that military presence was given to them at the request of the Maldives. They wanted helicopters, which were then
Yeah.
given to them. Then they asked us for Dornier, and we're like, "Bhai, tu Dornier ke saath karega kya?" Because these are long time
Sorry.
maritime patrol aircraft. How are you going to? What exactly are you scanning the sea for this much for? There has to be a kind of balance to what you want. Next thing you know, they'll ask us for anti-submarine aircraft. Are you going to spread a Maldivian anti-submarine net around? So there has to be a kind of proportionality. And this is responsible on India's part, which Maldives might not like. But we can't just uh, when somebody wants to bankrupt themselves, we can't just sit by and watch them bankrupting themselves. You see, there is a
Sri
difference
Lanka.
between India and China. Yeah. So in military terms, let's look at Bangladesh. In the 19, I think early 2000s, they bought MiG-29s from Russia. Now, the
Yeah.
MiG-29 is not as maintenance intensive or as maintenance expensive as Western aircraft. And even those they couldn't afford to fly and maintain. And so they had to shift to Yak 130s and things like that, right? Now, China is the kind of person who will, if you assume India and China are mummies, okay? Uh, India is the kind of India के बच्चे वो होते हैं like a typical Indian mother. मम्मी मेरे को I want ice cream and cornetto, and she slap him and say क्या तेरा बाप का factory है क्या take a chocobar, ₹5 का chocobar, not a 30 rupee का cornetto, and be happy with it. Okay, she's actually teaching you fiscal responsibility, which the modern generation of Chinese kids do not have because they go bankrupt buying stuff like snazzy cars and things. So in China,
Hmm.
because of the one child policy, पूरा दिमाग एक ही बच्चे पे है. When they go and say, "मम्मी मेरे को Lamborghini खरीदना है," अरे माई का लाल जा खरीद जो खरीदना है, बर्बाद हो. Now this is what China does. China has destroyed the Sri Lankan economy. There is nothing in the BRI that is even remotely economically viable. So, people might resent you in the short term, but like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka that have realized that in the long term, India is just a way better bet. It is not predatory. The Africans have realized.
Yeah.
There's no great love for Indians in Africa. Like Idi Amin, of course, kicked out all the Indians from Uganda. But Kenyans and Tanzanians have no great love for Africa. And to be fair to them, Indians are very color racist. Okay.
We run the
There's no
country as
problem
it is, yeah.
denying that. Huh.
We run the country
But,
as it is.
but we don't abuse the country.
Correct?
Okay.
We are part of
As
that
opposed to
country.
the Chinese. Exactly. As opposed to the Chinese who come there and abuse the country.
Hmm.
And understand the only place where Indians have ever abused the country, it is not the Indian government that has abused the country, it is the Gupta brothers that went and abused South Africa, and
South
that too
Africa.
at the behest of Zuma. वो खुद नहीं कर रहे थे, they were doing it at the behest of Zuma. They were doing what
Yeah.
President Zuma asked them to. Okay, so there's a big difference out there. Now, the thing here is, I think everybody is wisening up to it. You should have seen people unnecessarily going after Maldives and Maldivians. Why मंत्रियों के पीछे जाओ ना? Why are you going after the average Maldivian? It leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth, right? How different is it from labeling all Hindus terrorists if some Hindu does something? It's not nice. So I found that a bit distasteful. But to
Yeah.
be fair, it was Twitterati and social media folks doing it. It was not, the government dealt with this in extremely mature, responsible,
Hmm.
and dignified way. Adi, can you hear me? Hello, Adi. Adi, can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Okay, I guess there's a bit of a challenge with the network. Just give me a second, guys.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect. I think everything crashed.
I okay, okay.
We are
Yeah,
fine.
sorry.
Government dealt with it in an extremely mature.
Yeah, so they dealt with it in a very mature fashion. And ultimately, it turns out the Maldivians also sacked, well, they've suspended those three ministers. उधर बहुत ज्यादा capacity deficit होगा, where
ये
even those.
सस्पेंशन क्या होता है? सस्पेंशन या तो हटाओ या लेके आओ। ये सस्पेंशन क्या है?
So I don't. I want to see how this plays out,
हाँ.
because apparently at least two of these people, the two ladies, they seem to be insanely popular. They were spearheading the
Yeah.
India Out movement. Okay, so let's see. I still think this will play out in the next few weeks. I think Muizzue himself, by the end of his term, will see that India is much more valuable than China and much safer a bet than China as an ally. As it is in China, he's being shown his place. Huh? He's only meeting all the provincial folks, which anyway is
Nobody
what
came to
happens.
receive him.
Yeah. So good. Let this happen. I mean, he's going to get the full blast of China. My old boss Raja Mohan always used to say this, and now I've appropriated his kahavat. I wish China on my enemies. So instead of saying, I would urge all our audience that instead of saying, "Tumhara bhai mare, tumhara baap mare, tumhari maa mare," something something, you say, "I hope तेरे घर में China आ जाए." China is the most predatory friend you will ever have. So if you want
Yep.
to make friends with the Chinese, congratulations to you. I wish the Chinese upon you. I wish Muizzue and Xi Jinping deserve each other.
That's absolutely correct. And one thing which was interesting is that there's this one character, what, Kursi something, that
Oh,
turns out to
Kurusi,
be a
Kurusi. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
Great fun.
turns out to be a girl sitting in UK of all the things. And I'm like, ये क्या हुआ भाई? तो मतलब उसकी तो
Fun, no?
बेचारे की कुर्सी कुर्सी गिरे जा रही थी, कुर्सी गिरे जा रही थी. And the desperation came out when they said, yeah, we request all Pakistanis to come and stay with us. And I'm like, eh?
पैसा कहाँ है उनके आने के लिए? But it's good. It's very
I,
good. The other thing which a very racist trope that they used was, the Western tourist on average spends about $2,250 per person,
yeah.
whereas the Indian tourist spends $750. Do you know there is not one single tourism survey on earth which does not show that the lower spending tourist entire spending is localized spending that benefits local society. The higher up the value chain you go, the more of that money gets repatriated back to the corporation, the holding corporation's home country. So Ritz Carlton, Westin, St. Regis, all of this, that 2,250, at most about 350 to $400 will stay local. The rest of it all goes abroad.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, uh, in this particular case, that entire 750 stays locally, because the Indian tourists go to local islands. They go to local tour operators and dive operators. They don't go to Westin, Ritz Carlton, and all these places.
Yeah.
All that money is localized. So imagine being a country dependent on tourism, and the ministers don't even know basic tourism dynamics and tourism economics.
I don't think all
Even
this
in
was
countries
tourism.
like Australia and America, sorry, I don't think all this was.
I don't think all this was tourism. This thing. I think this was motivated. "Oh, अब तो मौका मिला, let's pretty kind of
Of
crack
course,
them,"
I
sort of a
mean,
thing.
but यार, but कुछ अकल तो होनी चाहिए ना. See, it's like this. How many of us have, while starting out, have been employed who wanted to punch our bosses in the face?
Mm.
Boss ने आज मेरे को ये बोल दिया, मैं उसको मुक्का मारना चाहता हूँ. Okay. Do you actually punch him in the face? No. Okay. Why? Because there is a difference between fantasy and restraint. These are the three ministers who, after becoming minister, thought they could punch the boss in the face and get away with it.
Mm.
See, you can be a Maldivian tourism industry professional, say an F&B manager or a waiter or something. And Indians are loud and rambunctious. Guju auntie came and said, "Hey, मेरा थेपला का है ये क्या बना के दिया टूना शुना मैं टूना शुना नहीं खा रही मेरे को थेपला दे whatever," and you got pissed off with her. You can't punch her in the face because she's your guest. Okay.
Hmm.
Now these guys, they've taken out their angst vicariously through an election, voting for a highly demagogic and irresponsible candidate whose cabinet members have done the punching. Now, sure, you did not like Guju auntie, but Guju auntie was paying for the food on your table and your kids' education.
Everything full price.
Now Guju auntie has stopped coming. What are you going to do? Sure, she's not going to be yelling at you for not getting theplas, but there's no food on your table, no? So this is the long-term realization that happens. Short-term gratification versus long-term gratification. Bangladesh has learned long-term gratification. Sri Lanka has now learned long-term gratification. Maldives is in the process of learning long-term gratification. Let's see what happens.
What do you think about Bangladesh? That was interesting. The entire force of the alleged State Department, deep state, जिसको बोलते हैं, the dirty old deep state. I think there are two deep state, the old one and the new one. Everybody has their own analysis, but पूरा दम लगा लिया, but आंटी को हिला नहीं सके ये लोग. And people are congratulating openly in India ki congratulations, yeah, India, you got Hasina back. Like and it's not
Maza,
just
no?
Indians.
Maza, because see, it's a very important message
Yeah,
because we kind of let's face it, Sheikh Hasina has always kind of been allied with India in that sense. We don't interfere the way State Department does in other countries' affairs, but she's always been aligned with India. And I can assure you that the way this is playing out is that it's seen as one more place where India checkmated the State Department in not playing their goddamn mischief.
yeah, yeah.
So they can have more of these elections. They can claim that this is a unfair election and this and that. But we have a long history of telling them to when necessary. You remember during
Hmm.
Cyclone Nargis, the British and French had stationed an aircraft carrier off Burma and they were threatening regime change unless the
Yeah,
helicopters were allowed to deliver aid. Ultimately, they were not allowed in, and India told them to bugger off
bugger
because
off.
we provided them with 60, 70 helicopters to provide aid, which people forget. We were the ones doing the heavy lifting, and we said, look, we will pick up your aid from your aircraft carriers and deliver it to these guys.
True.
Okay? Because they did not want these guys in their country, justifiably. So, who the hell would? Okay, with that kind of an attitude. Uh, every time there is issues like this, in Sri Lanka, we keep, even though there is a Tamil vote base to look after in Tamil Nadu, we will still protect the government of Sri Lanka against Western criticism of Sri
Yeah,
Lanka's human rights record. We will do the same for Bangladesh. If it comes to that, Nepal is still up in the air. Bhutan is like completely now sold out to China. But we will always protect those countries. And, America can do what it wants in Yugoslavia, in Libya, in Syria. Hamare mohalle mein, you don't get to do shit without us
yeah, yeah.
or without our permission. This we're very clear about. So America can really take the hike and shove chilies where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, yeah. This time it was quite. I mean, previously they've done stuff. This time it was brazen. They put in
Yes,
that Peter Haas
very
guy
brazen.
there. Richard Haas's brother. Richard Haas's younger brother
Yeah,
was
yeah,
sitting
yeah.
in Bangladesh. I mean,
हाँ,
fantastic. They hired a lieutenant general.
अरे बहुत कुछ किया है. This is the visible aspect of it. Invisible aspect, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
Iceberg
yeah.
कितना बड़ा हुआ होगा सोच ही लो.
Nobody knows. That is
Hmm.
the whole this thing. Now the panga is that somewhere down the line, I find the Americans a little hobnobbing right now. They want to kind of teach us a lesson. Haven't they realized that that lesson will never be learned?
You
Or
see
is
the
it just Joe
problem,
Biden
Adi.
trying to get a last kill before he goes?
No, देखो Biden बुढ़ा सटिया गया है. He's not all up there. I mean, does he look like a
No.
coherent gentleman to you? No,
Nope.
no. He's heavily addled with drugs or whatever is required to keep him cogent for 2 hours a day. Uh, really what's happening out here is that because there is no real president and the vice president is hated and not listened to, she's treated as a joke even within the administration.
Yep.
There are many silos within the government. Now, normally you used to have a very powerful president, a very powerful vice president, and a very powerful chief of staff who used to whip everybody into shape. There is nobody because the chief of staff derives his or her power from the president.
Hmm.
Okay, the system is dysfunctional, and so there are lots of elements here and there who run their own agendas on the back of this thing.
Biden.
So, if you example, a lot of the anti-India shit that was coming out of the embassy in New Delhi was run by this third-rate woman deputy who was an affirmative action case,
Yep.
lesbian who got promoted only because she was a lesbian and nothing else, and the color of her skin and whatever. Literally, her own colleagues will tell you that there wasn't an iota of integrity or intelligence in that woman, and she was promoted only because she ticked a box.
Hmm.
And she used to hobnob around with all these librandus and things like that and get influenced by her because when you're a third rater, your only validation can come through people like that. So congratulations to her. Now Garcetti has come, and I'm sorry, but Garcetti is really a lightweight ambassador. You see, the problem with American ambassadors is when you have had India America relations have always grown, when you have had non celebrity technocrat ambassadors. The
Hmm.
India America relationship never does well when you have glitz, glam, toy
Samosa
boys and
eating ambassadors.
essentially walking, talking dildos becoming ambassadors.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this guy has done nothing else but eating samosa, pakoda, dosa, Mysore
Yeah,
pak.
that's it.
That's all.
That's the
That's all
extent
he's
of his
done.
diplomacy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very interesting to
Listen,
me. Now,
he's the mayor of Los Angeles.
yeah,
This is not a serious city. This is a city that only does drugs and Hollywood and shit like that. It does not do serious production. It does not do serious technology. It does not do serious anything. Okay, it is the city of dreams. The city of work is San Francisco. कम से कम अगर सैन फ्रांसिस्को का मेयर होता तब भी कुछ more seriously ले लेते. But he's not even that.
hmm.
So what do? You've
मेरे को ये
literally
बताओ,
sent. हाँ,
प्लीज
नहीं नहीं,
प्लीज प्लीज
हाँ
प्लीज
पूछ.
मेरे को ये बताओ, ये जो what you seeing right now is a tug pull fest. There's the radical right which is coming across from the outside, led by Trump and Ramaswamy and all these guys.
Hmm.
एक तरफ वो है. So what Hamas will, I want to come to Israel a little bit, but what Hamas has done is a big favor to all of us. It's brought a fight through between this global left versus the global right. How do you see this?
It's
Because the biggest, Claudine Gay, another example.
pure piece of shit. Uh, let's call her not example. Let's call her what she is, a pure undiluted piece of shit. A third-rate
Mhm.
person who does not have any. My dog has higher academic credentials than that woman, who's been
She's not
promoted
teaching
purely
anything.
for the color of her skin and
Yeah.
nothing else. Absolute piece of shit. Plagiarist. A plagiarist is a fraud. A plagiarist is a thief. Essentially, she's a roadside pickpocket who, because she uses all the right jargon and is the right color, etc., etc., incidentally from a very privileged family, unlike a certain black justice of the US Supreme Court who was born into a dirt poor family, who is hated by the liberals because he is conservative,
Yes.
uh, uh, she gets away with this crap. But this is the kind of dog shit that has been served up to us on a platter. At least we now know that we used to keep calling them jihadists and terrorists. Now they've just proven all our allegations.
Yep.
That they are jihadists, they are terrorists. They don't give a shit as long as you chant what they want you to chant. You can get away with murder. You can get away with. I bet you if Hamas had gone into Israel and had the time to set up gas chambers and gas off those 1,200 people,
Oh, these guys would
even
have
that
supported
would
it.
have been justified. They would have
Yeah.
supported it as decolonization.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So, what do you say about this whole tug of war which is happening? Whatever said and done, Hamas is now. Previously, it was Israel that was losing the game. Today, now Hamas seems to be on the back foot in terms of the propaganda. The
Look,
left seems like a beaten.
the propaganda stopped the moment the visuals stopped. You see, airstrikes are very sexy. They make for
Mm,
great visual footage. Ground strikes are not sexy. People lose interest in them.
yeah,
The airstrikes remind you of airstrikes are they are third person games. Everybody likes watching somebody playing Space Invaders where space things are being shot. Not many people like first person shooting games where people are going and shooting other people. Excuse me. Have you noticed
bless you.
this is a phenomenon that has been noticed and commented on quite often
Mm,
on how NATO sexualized uh, aircraft bombing, almost sexualized it. During that NATO bombing of Yugoslavia, you remember that horrible fellow Jamie Shea? He used to
yeah,
sit and was practically orgasming every time Serbs would die. I mean, short of flashing himself and jizzing on camera, he was doing everything else. So, people like that have sexualized airstrikes, which also works for the other side. It can be used to great propaganda value. And obscene death figures 20,000. Who even believes 20,000 dead, boss? Do you believe 20,000 dead? Nobody does. It's sub
I've
bakwas.
I've
Now,
shown the dolls. I've shown the dolls.
हाँ,
$60 a piece.
ए, तो ये $60 is too much. आजकल 10-15 डॉलर का मिल जाता है. Even the more realistic Chinese ones, and they're all Chinese by the way. So क्या होता है कि there is this whole thing now. I knew it would temper down because the moment a ground campaign starts, ground fighting is never sexy. Okay, you see, you will see lots of movies made about Top Gun, about ace pilots. But does anybody remember who Uri में who the hero was? Vicky Kaushal. What was Vicky Kaushal's character? याद है कोई? Commandos, infantry commandos are never heroes. But Top Gun pilots, everybody, does anybody remember Delta Commando Force का किसने Osama bin Laden को मारा था? Do you remember all the names? No. But you remember the names of World War One, World War Two aircraft aces, Manfred von Richthofen and all those people. सबको नाम more or less याद रहता है, ठीक है? I think the only people who achieved cult status were maybe snipers in the Stalingrad
Yeah, on the ground.
siege
Yeah.
and things like that. And that was the result of a deliberate Soviet campaign to make them popular as heroes. Because the Germans were scoring the air victories, the Russians decided that they needed to make the sniper equivalent of that. So this is now it was going the Palestinian way, Hamas's way. Now it is no longer going their way because nobody is interested in it anymore. And anyway,
Mm,
the longer a war continues, and this is going to continue for at least 2 years,
yeah, yeah.
at least.
अभी तो once they control the land, then they have to go at the bottom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Now, there's also a game which is being played in Iran, and a lot of people are saying, I've speculated myself sometimes, that Iran is kind of next on the menu. It may not be the military menu. It may be the another, the 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 what, Albert Einstein Institute of Nonviolent Regime Change menu. Uh, you know about that, right? Albert Einstein Institute of Nonviolent Regime Change.
I do not, but
Okay, so there's an Albert Einstein Institute, okay, in New York, which
are you
specializes in
serious?
regime change. Yeah, yeah, and it's headed by a guy called Gene Sharp, who's written a book called 198 Methods of Nonviolent Regime Change.
यार ये कोई ये होगा आउटलायर होगा.
No, 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 no. You read. I'll send you the Gene Sharp का books. You see, मतलब ये जो protest है ना, वो step 1, 2, 3, 4 देखते हैं and they just follow that. ठीक है?
Damn.
And इसका एक affiliate है जिसका नाम है महात्मा गांधी इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ regime चेंज इन रॉचेस्टर न्यूयॉर्क.
Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Regime Change. Are you kidding?
Yeah, non-violence and this thing. So yeah, it's there.
What the hell, dude? This is actually real.
Yeah, I'm not joking with you यार. मैं कुछ क्यों
What the
बोलूंगा
hell?
आपको ऐसे?
यार कौन ऐसे चलाता है यार? It's like starting up the Joseph Stalin Institute for Human Rights and
What does Albert
the
Einstein have to do with regimes? Please tell me this.
I don't. It's all relative. I think that's what it means.
मैं
Relativity.
आपको I'll send you the book after the show. I'll send you the books. Gene
Uh,
Sharp is the guy who's written, and आप ये protest देखो.
Amazing.
Trust me, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. पूरा print posters, print flyers, print this, print that, सब कुछ लिखा है उसके अंदर. So
यार
I
समझ
laugh
चुके
whenever there's a protest. कि ये है. But anyways,
amazing.
the fact that we established there is a you know a game here. What do you think is the game behind this whole Iran nonsense? Is Iran next?
No, I think Iran is too complex a problem. See, regime change can work in some places, but in places
Hmm.
that are too big, like Iran, you actually need physical intervention. So I think what you're
That's
going
the
to
question.
see is, yeah, what you're going to see is a whole load of uh, terror attacks happen in Iran, targeting regime and regime targets. This bomb blast that happened at Qasem Soleimani's grave on his death anniversary. I think you're going to see a lot more of things like that. I think you're going to see assassination attempts on the leadership.
Hmm.
Um, you're going to see actual assassination. Some of those attempts will succeed. So you'll see a whole load of that happening. You might see bombs go off at IRGC headquarters and things like that. So let's see.
Wow.
But Israel's not going to take this lying down. Let's be clear about it. They're not going to let Iran get away with it.
What about China? I mean, why is everybody quiet about China's involvement with all this? Weapons, communication equipment, the whole border defense equipment which is there in Israel has been bought by them, which incidentally was only programmed to look base, not on the top,
Yeah. Uh,
right?
well,
Why
look,
nobody's calling them out?
nobody will name China for the same reason nobody wants to call out China for illegal nuclear proliferation and things like that. Remember, China knew exactly what the AQ Khan network was doing. Did they stop him? They
Hmm.
actually used him as a conduit for, in fact, he was created by the Chinese because in that program where North Korea, Iran, and Pakistan were meant to synchronize their ballistic missile and their
Yeah.
nuclear weapons program, it was all masterminded from Beijing, but nobody called out Beijing, nobody punished Beijing, right? It's just China is too big and the decision makers are too corrupt and they all have business interests in China that they will never call out China. It's just not going to happen. You can literally prove that every single rocket came from China. It did not. They're all local. But assume, even
The
if it
pipes
did,
did.
some of the pipes did. Most of them were stolen water pipes and shit like that, ordinary PVC pipes and things, which is still an innocent explanation. You see, guidance mechanisms, shoulder-fired missiles coming from China, not so easy to explain. Uh, so, you see, this is. Let's see what happens. China will be punished very differently. The Israelis do want to punish China. Thing is, look at the size comparison. Israel kahan hai, China kahan hai. They will do other things. There will be very strict denial. The only source of comprehensive Western technology for China was which China has itself burnt the bridge for. Israel is not going to be selling anything worthwhile to China anymore. And they're already stopped. I guess a lot of the peak that
Yeah.
China felt was precisely because of that. Because it's very clear that the J10 is in fact a copy of the Lamy.
Lavi.
Same platform, same
Yeah.
uh, mission profiles, etc., etc. So there was, and even the this thing that got cancelled, the Harpi upgrade that got cancelled, and the AVAX upgradation that got cancelled, and things like that. They're still very upset about it.
Hmm.
Let's see क्या होता है कुछ नहीं. What will be done to China will be. See, the Israelis also separated. They're like, were you directly responsible for this? No. Did you know this was going to happen? No. Did you supply weapons and shit like that? Yes, and that is dealt with in a different category. It's not dealt with assassinations and things like that.
That's very interesting. I want to talk about Pakistan before I get back to Bharat's, this thing, because we've kind of established this, and I want to the closing will be, how do we handle all this nonsense happening around us? Uh, Pakistan is buying J-31s, right? That's
Are they?
interesting. I don't know.
कहाँ
That's
से?
what the narrative
किसका
is.
पैसा?
Ev- Everybody's saying. I don't believe it. Firstly, the
Hmm.
PLA doesn't want it, तो वो पाकिस्तान को बेच देगा, चलो ठीक है, समझ में आता है. अब वो
हाँ.
कौन सा जनरेशन है वो पता नहीं मेरे को. वो बोलता है ना, कॉन्टेसा कार के अंदर, वो जैसे पंजाब में होता है ना, कॉन्टेसा कार के अंदर बोट का इंजन लगा
हाँ.
के मस्टैंग की तरह पेंट करके चलाता है. तो इज इट दैट
हम्म.
और
Boss, look, I don't think the Chinese, if you read Chinese literature, I want you guys to Google uh, Jaidev Ranade. He runs the Center for China Policy Studies. Okay.
yeah,
Now, if
very
you
regular on the platform.
right, and then you know the kind of primary. They're probably the only Indian organization that does primary Chinese research. They employ lots of Tibetans and first class Chinese speakers who have gone and studied Chinese in Taiwan to actually read what the Chinese are saying themselves, not what other people are saying about them, and produce some fantastic material. The problem in India, of course, is it's unsexy stuff, so Indians don't want to go read those reports. But CCAS reports are fantastic reports. Everybody should
Yeah,
go read them. Anyway, so what happens is if you read that entire thing, you realize the Chinese don't even understand what the root of fifth gen is. They think shape stealth
yeah,
is fifth gen. Fifth gen is so much more than just shape stealth. Because you even look at the F-31 and the J-31 and the J-20 and all of that. Uh, they don't have the infrared suppression required. They don't have a lot of things for it, the massive bleed engines and things like that. They still not made
yeah,
their engines efficient. So there's massive issues with them which they still do not get. And I think you've all seen the reports of what's been happening in China. There's massive purges going on right now because most of their technology advances turned out to be fake. They were literally concocting data on missiles. The missiles were pre-programmed to hit, and there was a transmitter waiting to be hit, which was transmitting for the missile to come hit it, so that it was, things like that. And they've been purged from a lot of positions. A lot of R&D positions have been purged.
yeah. Even the
So we
defense
realize,
manufacturers.
yeah. Now see,
Mm.
fifth gen fighters are a very complex sociological phenomenon. It requires an open society to make them. Not that America is going to remain an open society. Understand, America today is not the America it was 10, 20 years back that produced the F-22 and the F-35.
Mm.
If if you think DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to produce F-35s and F-22, पिछवाड़े में pineapple आपके. Uh, so it's just not going to happen. Now, tell me, in a society like China where you're shit scared of failure, where there is a massive, India's problem is that DRDo is hardly ever held accountable,
Mm.
except the ballistic missile program, because that is monitored by the Prime Minister, which is why the rocket, ISRO and the ballistic missile program are insanely successful, because that is the
Yeah,
right amount of accountability. As opposed to the other programs where there is zero accountability, and China, where there is hyper accountability, it's not just accountability. They have to produce a marketable product every 1.5 to 2 years. You can't do defense technology like that. It has to have a gestation of something like, 10, 12 years or something like that,
true.
which these people, I'm sorry, cold,
You're still not well.
which these people, which these people really cannot. manage. So there's it's two different management philosophies gone wrong. 5G is a whole, not 5G, fifth gen is a whole of society approach, right? This is why it's cheaper to own a Mercedes or BMW in, say, in a first world country where the Mercedes or BMW mechanic is certified, is not a crook, is not selling you or putting second-hand parts in there. He has to keep going to training centers through the year for refresher courses. To the ones here who don't know how to repair your car properly, right? Which is why German cars will always give you problems.
Hmm.
And the Japanese know this very well, which is why they've tailored it to being a sort of low maintenance car kind of thing,
That's
right?
yeah.
So even 5 gen technology is a whole of society approach. It doesn't work in a Chinese economy, in a Chinese economic
Sweatshop.
reality.
Hmm. That's true. I mean, I wanted to basically get that out itself because there are. I don't know if you remember when Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan, right? They
Yeah,
fired 11 cruise missiles, right? They were supposed to fall in that box and they fell in the Sea of Japan. And
yeah.
then the next time when the vice president went, no, who went? The Speaker of the House went now recently. They said, no, 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 we're not firing any cruise missiles this time. So that tells you that there's an issue in targeting and stuff like that there itself. The Baidu doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Uh, uh, how is it going to work? In a very simple way. Uh, and sometimes I feel for an Indian audience, you have to use hyperbole. This is like expecting, it's like going to the Andamans and expecting the Sentinel Islanders to produce uh, cruise ships,
A wheel.
even a wheel. They
That's
might
high
know a wheel,
technology.
we don't know. That's high
Yeah, we don't know.
technology. So, it's, I'm exaggerating, of course. Uh,
Hmm. Okay, I guess his network hung up. Let's kind of just give it a minute. Not a worry. Guys, by the time, may I request everybody please like the video. Everybody please hit hard to the likes, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you've not. I'm sure he will just join back in a minute. It's frozen. Yeah, winter's here. That's why it's getting frozen. The lines get frozen. है ना? So like the video, guys, subscribe to the channel, and please, please, please spread the word about Dev Talks. And we're gonna ask now the next this thing question we will talk to him about is the factor that how is India going to handle this mess? Because there's a lot of yeah, he's giving Ashirwad. That's true. Uh, how is India going to handle all this mess which is around the place? Putin, USA, China, Pakistan, and of course the other factors, which is Maldives, Bangladesh, and the small are regional issues as well. So वो next phase आएगा, we will go through that. And this thing, he was saying something really interesting that ये इनके पास, one of the things that I'm noticing is that China has tried too hard in a lot of places. In certain places they've succeeded. ठीक है, rockets, they've got certain good stuff. इन लोगों ने space station बनाया है. They've got certain these things, but there are issues. There are targeting issues. उस दिन जैसे जनरल नारायण भी बता रहे थे कि their targeting this thing is a bit off. They've not been able to get that thing going properly. They've not been able to get the entire setup going properly. It's not a very proper system. And as far as aviation is concerned, जो मेरा थोड़ा सा एक personal interest है aviation के अंदर, I mean, I know for a fact. One second, guys. So I know for a fact that aviation के अंदर, see, there's a lot of, it's not a very easy thing to do. It takes a long time, and that's one of the reasons why आपको देखता है कि LCA में हम लोग बोलते हैं, हमारा तो थोड़ा obviously ज़्यादा खिंचा है, because सही moment पे आके अमेरिकन्स ने थोड़ी सी हमारे फ्लाई बाय वायर के ऊपर वो लगाए थे, सैंक्शन लगाए थे, तो हम लोग तो वहीं पे रुक गए थे एकदम आके। 10 साल हमारे वहीं पे लग गए थे फ्लाई बाय वायर के अंदर। सो इट इज एविएशन इज नॉट दैट सिंपल टू डू कि भाई आप जहाज बनाओ उड़ाते रहो, जहाज बनाओ उड़ाते रहो। वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट रीजंस, एंड मैं आपको ये चीज बताऊं कि चाइना के पास इतने सारे क्वांटिटी में जहाज क्यों हैं, क्योंकि दे से यार क्वांटिटी इटसेल्फ इज अ क्वालिटी, राइट? सो दैट इज देयर लॉजिक। Okay, I guess he just messaged me. His internet is down, and he's trying to reboot the modem, so it'll probably take 5 minutes. So yeah, मैं जो बोल रहा था, देखिए, it's not that simple, right? I'll tell you a couple of things. This flying wing जो हम लोग B2 बॉम्बर देखते हैं आजकल, जो आज यहाँ पर भी उड़ रहा है, हम लोग घातक उड़ा है। उस दिन जैसे हिमाचल बेदी के साथ हमने बात किया था, द B2 बॉम्बर का कॉन्सेप्ट लिखा गया था 1940s 50s के अंदर बाय अ गाय कॉल्ड जैक नॉर्थरॉप। ठीक है, उसने वो कॉन्सेप्ट लिखा था, एंड ही रोट दैट थिंग, एंड ही वांटेड टू फ्लाई इट अप। इन्होंने एक टेस्ट बेड बनाया जो उड़ा नहीं, दूसरा बनाया जो उड़ा नहीं, तीसरा बनाया उड़ा नहीं। देव देव ट्राइड एंड ट्राइड एंड ट्राइड एंड ट्राइड, एंड जब जाके फ्लाई बाय वायर सिस्टम एक्चुअली आया, बिकॉज जो एक फ्लाइंग विंग होता है, इट्स इनेटली नॉट वेरी स्टेबल टू फ्लाई। ही इज बैक। हेलो।
Hello. One second. Let me just.
सो इट्स नॉट वेरी स्टेबल टू फ्लाई, तो
Oh,
उसको
thanks, fell
40 साल
from my
लगे
neck.
थे।
Sorry, I didn't even see it was around my neck. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. So we were
Okay,
talking
ठीक.
about the flying wing and the technology of aviation as where we left.
हाँ,
I took the example of Jack Northrop and the flying wing. It took them 40
hmm.
years to build that thing. So
To build it. And there was a predecessor to it, which is the German
yeah,
Hortense bomber,
132.
which is claimed falsely to be a stealth bomber, which it was not. It was just a wing form. And I don't know why people get their history from History Channel. You never should, because that documentary itself was such a hoax.
Yeah.
If it was flying at 1,000 feet, venture anything flying at 1,000 feet is stealth. You can't really tell 1,000 feet, right? So that's not the way stealth works. Stealth should work at high this thing as well. But anyway, it took them so long, and there were so many things to consider. Even stealth, it was the Russians who developed the this thing, but they didn't have the processing part to do the computational dynamics for stealth on curved surfaces. And that is how the Americans took it forward, because they had the computational power and things like that. And I think uh, Angad corrected me on this. I think it was the other way around or something. I forget what it was, but anyway. But these things take a lot of time, and I don't think the Chinese have. If you're telling me that one market of 1.3 billion people with uh, at a per capita income of just $10,000 is going to compete in innovation with a market of 1.1 billion people with an average per capita income of about $45,000, boss, not working. And that entire 1.1 billion people, even though they divided over 20, 30 countries, they form a uniform marketplace of ideas, which I call the Westosphere.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to compete with it.
Mm.
Maybe now you can because of DEI and all the thought controls and shit. But
Which
no,
is also
not
done by
happening.
China, by the way. Which is
Yeah,
also done by China on TikTok.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
So
really funny. So now let's come to the factor. How do you think we are doing in terms of diplomacy? Mr. Jaishankar has written this book. I've just read the first chapter today.
hmm,
Very interesting, very well written. How do you think we are doing? We always curse ourselves, but at the end of it, we always end up patting our backs. So what's happening here? Are we not confident enough, or are we not giving it time for it to mature up? What's happening with our diplomacy? How do you think we are playing the game? Of course, after winning Bangladesh, by the way.
see, diplomacy is so much more than writing books and giving smart aleck comments. I've seen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in India, we think that is diplomacy, but the most meaningful diplomacy is actually extremely boring and happens behind closed doors, which you never see. And that is based on a huge expansion of your diplomatic corps, which just has not happened.
Yeah,
600 odd diplomats is just not enough. Okay, you need something
that's true.
about 3,500 to 4,000 diplomats, because your diplomat has to be present at every single meeting, functional meeting, which is where all the technical details are decided, which we're always absent from because we like our grandstanding ambassadors who come at the last minute, give a fantastic speech which goes viral on Twitter or whatever, and everything is missed during the negotiation phases out there, which nobody wants to attend. Even at the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, because I work a lot with them, the Indian delegation out there attends less than 2% of meetings. The Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, they all attend 100% of the meetings, not 100, about 98% of the meetings. Some they boycott because uh, some are political meetings and
Yeah,
things like that, which
political.
they want to show that, yeah. But if it is not a political meeting, they ensure they attend. Sometimes they two, three people attend. Your diplomat is your primary source of intelligence gathering.
Yep.
अगर वो ही नहीं कर रहे हो, बिना प्राइमरी रिसर्च के कैसे strategic autonomy है? Without autonomous information gathering, how can you have a strategically autonomous foreign policy? You can't.
Mm. That's one gap I also see, that we need to increase the number of diplomats. There's no question
And
about it.
unfortunately, book writing and smart aleck remarks and scoring debating points is not a substitute.
Mm. How do you
We
think?
tend to make this.
How do you think the whole game with you know the West, especially America, is going right now? Because there seems to be a little bit of uh, a stick in the wheel, which is being put by the State Department again with regards to all the defense deals. Why do you think that is, and how do you think it's going to go forward?
It's not really state, that is defense. But see, there's been no motion, no movement from our side either. Okay, so let's be quite clear about that. Pentagon remains very pro-India. They want a lot of deals going through. State isn't really blocking anything. Even Blinken isn't blocking anything
No,
realistically.
we've sent the letters for the drones. There's no response from them. The GE 404s are delayed, so there's a bit of a
No,
challenge
no,
there.
no. Apparently, there was a major this thing. We were told to send it in a certain format, and we did not. They actually did come back and tell us to. I'm not going to talk about this in public, but this is a classic thing. This is, I've seen this happen very, very often, and should actually be quite worrying, where somebody sends something done deliberately wrong or sometimes unintentionally wrong, and the mistake is pointed out, and they're asked to send it, and they immediately blame the other person because you clear one UPSC exam and you're meant to be an all-seeing, all-knowing eye, Trilok Darshi, Trilok Jani, kya, Nirmata of everything, whatever. So there's nothing you can do about it. That's a bit more complex actually. State isn't holding it up. The problem is coming from other angles, which is that there are malign elements in state who are putting in the building block and narratives which go unchallenged for a future denial to happen. And
Yep.
when it does happen, it ends up becoming, well, you never counted all of this when the case against you was being made. You can't now come and say कि ये हो रहा है. Okay, and this is why you actually need a heck of a lot more diplomacy.
Mm. Because I heard that they've sent the case to now the Trade Commission, the Trade Committee, Senate Committee on Trade. Yeah, something like that. I believe so. And
And
they've kind of said
and
the biggest question they're asking, yeah, this stuff we don't even give the Britishers and Australians. Why do we give it to the Indians and all that stuff? That's one of the
right
questions that
now,
came up.
here's the thing: the Americans are actually 100% convinced that some of this stuff we won't be able to absorb.
Mm.
They're too polite to tell us that to our face. But and I know we're not going to be able to absorb it because absorption requires a whole industrial chain to absorb it.
Yeah.
It has to be the profit isn't made in just defense in low rate production. It is how those technologies can be leveraged into the civilian market and used, which is where the actual bulk profits and things like that happen. पर वो तो होने वाला है नहीं. So, they are not uh, averse to it. The problem is they can't come out in committee and also say that, boss, we can give it to the Indians because the Indians don't know what to do.
There's still time for it. It's not. We are not there yet.
There's a lot of time. There's a lot of time for. Uh,
So, what
you
about
know,
your best friend Justin? Just the last question.
oh God,
He gave a threat
what a horrible
that
character. यार
no, yaar,
खत्म कर
you
रहे हो.
broke his
At least you should finish with something मीठा. ये क्या
no. I
करेला
mean,
को
you
last
broke
course बना
his
दिया. You're feeding
you.
the करेला का हलवा at the end. यार.
Then you broke his plane again. Yeah.
Huh? I
हाँ
broke his
जमैका में.
plane again. By the way, this isn't that plane. Huh? This isn't the A310. This is the Bombardier. Canadian-made product which broke down, which now focuses everything on the two planes that he took. For all that environmental consciousness and things, he had to take two planes with him. Uh, well, good for you. I mean, look, Justin is a joke. He's not even worthy of being taken seriously. He's a himbo.
Yeah, yeah. चलो
There's
ठीक है.
nothing you can do about it.
आप डेजर्ट मांग रहे थे तो मैं डेजर्ट वापस आपसे पूछ लेता हूँ. Will America reach the election?
I don't know. I don't know. See, I think America is heading towards a civil war.
Yeah,
Maybe not a civil
looks like
war,
that.
but a state of civil insurgency.
Hmm.
Uh, and this isn't, I mean, there's nothing new. Like, Greece at the peak of Athenian democracy uh, saw massive internal strife within it.
Yeah,
Rome at the peak of the Republic saw civil wars happen not once, but two, three, four, five. And after that, every emperor change was accompanied by a civil war. I think democracies have this tendency of destroying themselves. And in the end, it won't be that somebody else destroyed America, it's that America destroyed itself. वो apocalypto में वो line है ना कि uh, a great civilization is cannot be destroyed from without till it is destroyed from within. And that is, of
without.
course,
Yeah,
the story of Amarapali and the Lichavi Confederacy, even during the Mahajanapada period in India. It is that, Bindusara's minister goes and he sows dissent amongst the Lichavis. That when the Magadhan army finally attacks, it is the Lichavis themselves who open up the gate. And Amarapali realizes what she's done, and then she goes and becomes a bhikkhuni of Buddha, following Buddha's footsteps. Was it Bindusara or Bimbisara? I forget.
yeah,
Ajatashatru's father, or it was
yeah.
Ajatashatru. I
Bin,
forget
bin,
which one it was, but
Bindusara, Bindusara. So
so
there's
uh,
yeah, yeah, please.
so there is actually an Indian story about this in the Pali canon itself, where in democracies you start seeing each other as a bigger enemy than the outsider. And I think that's what's happening in America. You're seeing the sort of Amarapali moment of America.
I mean, I'm
Not
I'm a
that
bit
Trump
worried.
looks like Amarapali. Amarapali was an extremely cultured, beautiful lady. I
He
don't
looks
think
like an
Trump would.
orange tree.
Yeah, but I guess
Mhm.
uh,
Orange.
he's the Amarapali. Now you decide who Bimbisara is.
So the other day I got an email saying that you're being too pro BJP. You put orange here, you put orange there, and I made it very clear. Orange is like one of my favorite colors. I've got three shirts that are orange.
I love
So
orange. What's wrong
so
with
I
orange?
said I said no, no, no. I'm a Trump supporter. He's orange.
Huh. Perfect. I'm also Trump supporter, and I'm bald.
Yeah. So okay, let's get into some questions, guys. Like all of you guys. There's about what 3,500 people watching us. So please like the video, hardcore. Let's spread this video far apart because the first some stuff that we've discussed very important as for today's geopolitics. Rest everything is also very important, but the first one is hot and happening right now as far as Bangladesh and Maldives is concerned. So it's very interesting. There's somebody called Audrey Tushke Iyer Mitra who's quite a fan of you, I must say. uh,
Really.
he, she, they, them, these, zar, zir. I don't know. They're new pronouns. I wonder what this person is, but they've been wanting to feed you bindi. So,
My favorite vegetable. Thank you, Audrey, but I'm not coming home. I'm divorcing you. Talak, talak, talak. Bye.
okay. Thanks so much for your contribution. I wonder what the story there is all about. Bharat
It's
Konda. They're
reverse
like,
Dahej.
yeah, they're about 50 messages of this person saying this. So I said, okay, let me put up one.
Hmm.
Bharat, thanks so much for becoming a member. Vishak, thank you so much. He says, "Hi, Adi Abhijit. What happened to your Apple headphones? Does the new Castlevania preach woke pride? I I only start watching after your views."
No, it does not. Uh, my Apple headphones are right here. I'm just wearing these because I realize these are somewhat more they're easier for this thing, because the thing with the Apple is if I look away from my computer to my phone, it also switches the audio to my phone. I haven't gotten over how to fix that problem. So I'm just
Switch on the
using this.
Bluetooth in your phone.
So I've connected this to the computer, and excuse me, that is connected to my phone because I use my phone to listen to high definition music. So yeah,
Indeed. Mr. Gamer, thank you so much. He says, daughter of former President Mohammad Nasheed is Kursi.
is she okay?
That is, her pictures are out in social media. So, you know,
Is it really?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Holding a phone like that and sitting in UK.
अच्छा भेजो जरा.
हाँ मैं भेजता हूँ आपको. I'll send it to you.
Hmm.
Is there? Tony Stark, thank you so much for your contribution. He says Nawaz Sharif coming back in Pakistan. What's the angle?
Hmm. Oh well. Let's see.
I'll send it to
The
you. I'll
angle
send you
is.
a link.
Hmm. I don't really care about the angle because the thing is, it's basically the army manipulating it. And they found a new enemy called Imran Khan, who is even worse. That it now justifies them making up with their old enemy. Remember, this also happened with Benazir Bhutto. They kicked her out. She was enemy number one. Nawaz Sharif
Yeah.
was their friend. Then Nawaz Sharif became their enemy. And so they made up, they hugged and kissed and made up with Benazir. They also killed her. And they made her husband president instead. Then, it was Imran Khan. And now Nawaz Sharif is back in the good books. It's all relative. Uh, they're acting too smart by half, and it's just that.
Audrey, thank you so much once again. भिंडी लेने भेजा था यहाँ गप्पे मार रहा है. अब तो डिवोर्स हो गया छोड़ दो. HK, thank you so much. इसे सब ring Ankit Chan, Major General Narayanji Ankit is the known gunman. He knows it all. Government's moves. I wonder where he gets his information from. But General Ryan is a regular. It's Abhi YT. Thank you so much. He says India China को कैसे counter करेगा? Good
Well, I
question.
wish I knew that, buddy. Um, I I honestly don't know how you counter them without matching the industry. Because the only other way you can do it is be completely asymmetric. Don't go in for the trap of C control, go in for C denial. Be asymmetric with everything, which we're not. We're matching them platform for platform very conventionally. I think it's a very dangerous strategy. Because we don't have the kind of money to burn that China does. And all your equations can't be based on the fact that Chinese soldier bhag jayenge or Chinese equipment काम नहीं करेगा. Because
It
then
can't
you'll
be.
finally come up with, yeah, exactly. So, I think that, remember, just one ship in their fleet, the Type 55 destroyer, 55A or whatever, has more vertical launch tubes than our entire Eastern fleet combined. Hmm. Let that soak in. I mean,
Sea
it doesn't
denial and
even
all
have to
that
be more
doesn't work.
advanced.
Sea denial and all that is all passive. They've shown it to you in the Red Sea. You block my Malacca, I'll
Look,
block your Red Sea there.
which is why we need sea denial. We can't do sea control because you can't match them up, aircraft carrier to aircraft carrier.
Nope. You
So
need
what you have to
submarines.
do is you need submarines. Exactly. You need a large 24 submarine से काम नहीं चलेगा. You need about 48 to 72
60.
submarines. Focus on serious submarine capacity.
Yeah.
Focus on sea, and instead of having three ships of every class, have a solid 24 to 30 destroyers or frigates of one kind,
One type.
which have a large number of VLS tubes doing this. See, there's a
True.
good way of doing this and there's a bad way of doing this because you have your aircraft carrier. It's called the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. These are unsinkable aircraft carriers. You can project huge amounts of power from there, right? वो करना बहुत important है. And instead, what you need is probably smaller anti-submarine aircraft carriers of the Virat Vikrant size, tiny pocket carriers, which do helicopter because anti-submarine is a very difficult thing. Please don't fall for those Bollywood movies that show you ping कर दिया और वापस आ गया मैंने discover कर दिया. Detecting submarines is one of the most nasty, horrendously difficult things, which requires a huge amount of time and effort. It has to be triangulated. There has to be variable depth sonar. There has to be towed array sonar.
Yeah.
There has to be another aircraft sitting and loitering somewhere else with a dip sonar. Uh, uh, you need surface vessels, you need submarines, and you need aircraft carrying out this surveillance. It's very, very difficult. I think we need to be much, much more focused on things like this, and rather than spreading our resources thin and not being able to do anything particularly well.
Mm, Ajay Goyalji, thank you so much for becoming a member. Mr. Gamer, once again, Abhijit, if we boil down to it, 2 points. Okay, what's the reason we have neighbors like this? I understand Pakistan and China, but Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Burma, Nepal, and goat dropping nation Maldives. Okay, we have always helped them, but they still shit on us.
We
Okay,
discussed this. We still discuss this. We
yeah,
discussed this right in the beginning.
it's a lot of historical baggage, if I may just,
A
yeah,
historical and inferiority complex.
yeah. Dr. NPC, thank you so much. On Maldives, we should let this pass or tell the world with proofs. If you go to Maldives, then you are supporting no religious freedom, racism, extremism, ISIS funding, and destruction of sensitive ecosystems through profit.
भाई देख जब मालिक
This,
एक दूसरे मालिक को मारता है ठीक होता है पर जब मालिक एक अबला बच्चे को मारता है रास्ते पे it doesn't matter what the abla bachcha might have done. The abla bachcha might have taken a pen and stabbed your foot.
yeah,
Huh? You'd still end up looking like the asshole for doing it. So don't do that. Don't fall into that. They want you to fall into that trap too.
yeah.
This is what China does. They prioritize short-term satisfaction of bullying little countries, and look where that's got them.
And this doesn't sell. Religious freedom, racism, extremism, this doesn't sell.
See,
There's no
these
catch
are
value for it.
exactly. These are terms that are dropped when it's convenient. When they've decided, see, if Adi is, I have decided today that Adi मेरा निशाना बनने वाला है. I will use
बनाने के लिए
everything in my.
यूज करोगे.
हाँ. On the other
Correct.
hand, it doesn't matter. Adi might turn out to be a complete Charles Shobraj in secret. But if I've decided he's my best friend, even him, literally, I can go into his kitchen and there'll be a girl's leg sticking out of his stock pot. वो तंदूर से
You
एक
won't see it?
लड़की का टांग लगा होगा, which is being basted with ghee, and he's talking to me, अरे अभिजीत कैसे कर रहे हो यार, and he'll be basting it with ghee while roasting it. Even then, I will not do anything. So see, these things work when you build up, when you've decided what your target is, and you've built up mahal over here.
Ji. Epstein.
That's the classic case.
I wonder what the hell is that? Yeah.
Sick.
I mean, people have been telling me, sir, do some research on. I'm like, no, no, I don't want
And
to.
it's a really scary rabbit hole to go
Sick.
down.
I don't
And
want to even get into it.
it is sick.
I just don't want to even. There's so much of this leaked pages and this and that. Every time I see a post, it's just up, up, up. I don't want to see this. I just don't want to see it. It's terrible.
Mm.
Shashank Kothari, thank you so much. He said just China and CIA collide in India's affairs. Why USA has a soft stance on China when China is rotting USA from the inside?
Collide in India's affairs. You mean collude or collide?
Collude.
Not really. Not really. See, they come from different places. China, and we've already discussed this, Shashank. China has so much, it's compromised so many people in America, you can't afford to take a strong. That strong stance is the resort of last measure. It's not going to come out now. It will, the strong stance will come only when America is threatened directly by China, not when American
True.
by China.
Ajay Nairji, thank you so much. He says, will Afghanistan be able to get old Afghan territory from Pakistan?
No, but we should encourage them in the belief that they can.
I do all the time.
I support greater Afghanistan. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'm very clear about this, and I have always said this, that the Taliban are highly secular, progressive. They really respect human rights. I know them. I know many of them, including in the biblical sense of that word, and I completely can personally vouch for the fact that they are highly liberal, tolerant, uh, uh, very respectful of women's rights and human rights. Person.
You've been there, right?
They are they are true guardians.
You've been there,
They're
right?
just several days, almost a month, almost.
I know your Gaza story. I didn't know that you've been here.
So
Srinivas MS,
Afghanistan.
thank you so much. Uh, yeah, Subramaniam Swami has claimed China has captured 4,000 plus square kilometers of our land. Is this claim exaggerated?
Since which date? If you say since 1950, yes. If
40,000 ना फिर
you
तो एक जीरो और लगा लो.
but if you say since 2014, I would have to say no.
No.
In fact,
Uncle Ji is a little upset.
the
Yeah, it's
the, the,
okay.
the violence and the conflict is precisely because we ended the UPA era policy of turning the other cheek and turning a blind eye.
Yeah,
It is precisely because we put their foot down that they're so upset with us right now.
true. Kshitiz Goyal, thank you so much. He says SARC fund except Pakistan can help better relationship with neighboring countries. SARC is
Not
dead.
really, not really, because I think people have forgotten this. We You need to find that one point person who's willing to ameliorate things. People have forgotten this. But during the Khalida Zia time, we used to outsource our Bangladesh policy kind of to Malaysia because Malaysia
Yeah,
at that time was quite friendly. And they used to, say, look, don't take this unnecessarily different approach. And they were a Muslim country.
yeah.
And they would go and, calm down. Every time we had a problem with Khalida Zia, the Malaysians used to go and calm her down for us. So,
She had a nut
SARC
loose,
is
right?
not. She was she actually thinks we killed her husband. That's why she has huge issues. Yeah, yeah.
AA, that's my name. Thank you so much for your contribution. Dear Abhi, why did you get blocked on X by so many users? लोगों को आपसे इतना खौफ है क्या? You're awesome. There was a talk not long ago that Seychelles might give us a base. Is it true? Adi, love you, bro. Keep it up. Thank you.
If there's a base in Seychelles, very good. See, I'm not a big fan of bases in general unless we first have a clear strategy planned out. सी डिनाइल या सी कंट्रोल या क्या करना है पहले देख लेते हैं उसके बाद we'll determine what the strategy is. I am not a big fan of spreading our resources very thin at the moment, right? Unless somebody gives me a very concrete reason for a base in Seychelles, I'm not going to look for a third base out there. I'm much keener on a Socotra base than I am on a Seychelles base. And Socotra is now currently under UAE administration, by the way.
Yeah.
So there is that. And thank you. See, I get blocked by fascist right-wing Hindutvadis because of my principle, because I'm a left Marxist, and because of my principal support for Honorable Shri Sushri Mahua Moitra ji, and my advocacy of Sushri Mamta Banerjee ji and Adarniya Shri Akhilesh Yadav ji. These Hindutvavadi fascist bigots, they hate. They know I'm a progressive left wing communist and that is why they will never forgive me for it. And
Yeah,
that
see
is
the
why,
drapes, na? It's gray and you're wearing black clothes, so it's
yeah,
completely communist.
yeah,
So sad.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Ask Indian shipyards take very long time to build a carrier, 7 years. Don't you think giving them 4, 5 carriers in scale, speed, optimization, and innovation? 4, 5 carriers. Wow. I
Sure.
wish.
Look, again, first, I oppose the sea control strategy because remember, sea
Mm,
control is a layer that can be slotted on at any given point of time.
yep.
Okay. Now, even with the carrier, boss, you can't keep having every new carrier a new design. Consolidate the design, work on it,
Fix it, move forward.
and you have to have economies of scale. You can't keep changing the carrier design every carrier. ऐसे that is like having 3, 4 different carriers altogether. ऐसे नहीं
Yeah,
चलता है boss. So
that's true.
there's a whole host of issues that I'm not very happy with. So the Navy is way ahead from everybody else in terms of indigenization.
Design.
At the same
Mm.
time, this is a higher management issue where direction चाहिए. और जब तक वो डायरेक्शन मिलता नहीं है, and the problem is how much of defense policy is actually unknowingly controlled by the MEA in a sense, where they will not clearly identify A is enemy, B is threat. If you go to a meeting, they'll say shayad enemy hai, shayad friend. See, unless your MEA can guarantee supplies for the next 25 years without sanctions or these things, you can't commit to a friendship. Can the MEA give you that commitment? They can't. YouTube viral videos we'll get for the next 25 years if YouTube lasts that long. But those commitments, the MEA is unable to guarantee.
Mm.
So it's very difficult. Your foreign policy isn't clear, which then affects the general planning. Your higher defense, the elected executive management of defense uh, doesn't even understand defense to begin with. Your non-elected executive doesn't care. So how is the Navy able to come up with a strategy? It has to invest in everything, not against China, but hedging against your own government and hedging against your own bureaucrats because you don't know which bureaucrat tomorrow is going to decide aircraft carriers are bad and submarines good or submarines bad and aircraft carriers good.
Thankfully, the CDS office should change that. It's in progress, but
It's not. It's
I
not.
hope.
But this is not the first attempt at integration we've had. We had something else. When was the last time you heard about the CDS in the last years since General Rawat died?
Mm,
Nothing. No.
yeah, yeah.
Mentioning why. It's already been put out to pasture like integrated defense stuff. IDS was the last iteration.
Ideas was useless.
It was useless. The CDS is also going to
Totally.
be equally useless. कुछ नहीं हो रहा है उधर.
Ashutosh Khatyal, thank you so much. Is the new deep state's approach towards India any different than that of the old deep state? Is it evolving towards India or more anti-India?
Boss, I don't believe in these deep state theories. Okay, let's be very clear about it. I've said this on several platforms. There is a lot of people who think similarly because there are vested
Motives.
interests. So, for example, the INC way of dealing with Muslims was the same as the Samajwadi Party, which is the same as the DMK, which is everything. Why? Because of sociological conditions. Where Sunnis, you did not have to give the Sunnis anything. You just had to give the Sunni leadership MP posts, MLA posts. आपके बेटे के शादी पे ये आपका land grab. You remember the Shahi Imam of Jama Masjid?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you heard about that? 10 साल से उस पिगलेट अपने अपना मुंह भी नहीं खोला है. क्यों? Have you ever thought of it? His wings have been clipped.
Yep.
He was kept afloat by people like the Congress Samajwadi Party because they used to treat all the Muslim people in Jama Masjid like dirt, but they used to engage. He has done so much land grabbing. Do you remember that, Adi? How much land grabbing the bugger had done? Hmm?
Now he sings
Uh,
songs.
अब तो he doesn't even show his face anymore. अब तो आके नमाज भी नहीं पढ़ता है वो पब्लिक में. Nobody has seen him in the last 10 years. I don't even know if he's alive or dead. Why? Because all of them decided that it was much easier to deal with this individual guy. Let him grab land, but you don't have to give the Muslims anything. All of them independently came up with the strategy. It was not a thought out, calculated strategy, but it was the least investment, highest return on investment strategy for everybody to do.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, for example, not all of you are as old as I am, but एक जमाने में you were only allowed to take $500 out of the country in your
Yeah.
passport. It used to be listed in your passport. ठीक है? In those days,
Endorsement.
all of us used to take, everyone used to take about $1,000 out, छिपा छिपा के ले जाते थे. It wasn't some social conspiracy to screw the government over. It was just because of the way things are. So no, the deep state hasn't changed. The paradigms, there is no such thing as a deep state. There is a lot of people with deeply interconnected interests, which you may see as a deep state, but it does not function organically.
Yeah. They all get together at interest levels.
Yeah,
Shriram, thank you so
exactly.
much.
And
And
see,
see,
at the same
combined.
time, they were very happy throwing Epstein under the carpet when it suited them,
Yep.
under the truck. They kept him under the carpet, then they threw him under the truck.
The cameras didn't work. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. Nothing. And it just went. Last few
Uh,
will take Shubham Agrawalji. Thank you so much. He says, ask Abhijit, more aircraft carriers or more submarines? I think we've taken this up. Atul Khomane Saab, thank you so much. He says, out of syllabus question, when you talk about technology, the whole world is running on Nikola and Tesla invention. USA is all his notes. Yeah, Nikola Tesla.
oh, Nikola Tesla invention. Okay, and what is the question?
USA has all.
They're not all his inventions, huh?
Yeah, they're
Uh,
not.
they're not. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. But
Kinky Tail, thank you so much. I think Abhijit has answered this question. Why don't you believe in a deep state? Satish Patelji, thank you so much. Rohitji, why doesn't India build civil aviation aircraft before jumping to military? That will build plane building capacity, which can then put to good use. It's a
agreed.
good thing.
That's what.
Good thought.
I don't know if it's very good to compartmentalize them one in the other. I mean, look at Embraer. Embraer developed very organically. Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, and they started with small civil aircraft. There were the Banderante and Jingu and things like that, which also made military versions of crossover aircraft almost. Uh, Civil aircraft today are much more complex. The certification of it is insane. And there's a lot of politics that comes into it, much more so than a military aircraft. Okay? Civil aircraft, remember, China started building military aircraft way before it built civil aircraft. Military aircraft are easier to amortize, civilian aircraft are much harder to amortize. There is a fantastic jet called the Mitsubishi Regional Jet, which nobody bought.
Yeah.
It
The
just
Germans
flew.
did this when they
Uh,
made their the civil aircraft, and they just packed them up and made them bombers. But
yeah.
then fighters is
And
another story altogether.
but then they were able to produce some fighters after the war, but it didn't make any sense for any of them to individually produce it. You look at Hawker Siddeley,
Yeah.
all of them, they all collapsed, and it had to sort of all be all the assets had to be consolidated into Airbus. Aerospatiale, Hawker Siddeley, all of them got
Yeah.
consolidated into becoming Airbus. Messerschmitt MBB was one of the people don't
Best.
realize this, but Messerschmitt, it was incorporated into Airbus.
Airbus, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Dornier.
we are very proud of that aircraft today.
Yeah,
Sino Wahhabi leftist line. This man has stolen my phrase. Thank you so much for your contribution. He says, Sir, when Peter Zion says USA wants to reduce his burden and talks about a post American world, so what about dollar hegemony? Uh, is this why Bitcoin ETF are reluctantly being approved? Per capita dollars matter?
this is all Greek and Latin to me. First, I haven't heard this particular episode of Peter Zion at all, so I don't know what the basis
No,
of this
he's
is.
basically, let me just give you a background. He's saying that post American, his logic is that we used to control the ocean. Now we don't want to do it. That's why there are regional powers coming up, and we'll support them and we'll back away into it. We'll make more carriers. Anybody screws around with us, we'll go stonking him on his head with our carriers. That's it. That's his post-American world.
So this is actually a guy called Parrot. This is a very old theory, not Parrot, RROT, PARRET, who came up
E.T.
with this theory long back,
James Parrott.
where
Mm.
it's you last longer. You create lots of deputy sheriffs, and your collapse from power doesn't happen like this. It continues like this over a long
Continues.
period of time, and it becomes gradual. Okay? So he came up with this theory, and you can actually see that theory in practice. So they create lots of deputy sheriffs and things like that. The problem is that the left wing capture, they never contemplated a left wing capture of power in America itself, which was going to weaken America much from a completely different direction where it didn't expect to get weakened.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's weakening its own allies because part of this left wing capture involves a lot of illegal immigration, which essentially overnight third worldizes your country.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that is where the thing is. So Zehan is kind of correct. He's parroting Paré, what Paré said sometime back, but uh, it's not going to plan.
True. What about the
Okay.
dollar?
And boss, de-dollarization hoga, I have no doubt about. Kab hoga, I have a big question mark about.
True.
Because I'm not convinced, I'm not seeing all the signs.
Mm.
I suspected we are not going to see the signs after Ukraine as well. Ukraine is one of the nails in the coffin, maybe. It was more the sort of क्या कहते हैं the sort of complete erosion of trust in a public good, where you weaponize Swift and things like that for yourself, isn't going to go down well. Okay. But the second thing is, look at the debt to equity ratio of America. It is insane. There is no way America can pay back its debts. So you have to maintain the illusion that America can pay back its debt. And you're essentially living on debt, which is completely unsustainable because at some point it's going to lead to a systems collapse. Now, till the systems collapse happens, you're not going to see comprehensive de-dollarization. But when that system collapse is going to happen, what's going to bring it about? I
No
still
one knows. No one knows. That's the problem with
होने तो
America.
वाला है.
Hoga, but right now also they've got, I mean, out of what, 31 trillion, they've got a certain amount of debt which is self debt,
Yeah.
which is internal debt that they can just amount to say, okay, we don't, okay, written off, khatam, and they can afford it. So instead of paying
They can.
interest on that debt, so their debt reduces by the way, 42% when they do that.
But that also means that all the businessmen who had invested or purchased that debt get wiped out. So it
No,
wipes
yeah,
out almost, yeah, so it
that's it.
wipes out a very significant percent of your industrial class. Now, the question is, so there are two kinds of system collapse that can happen. One is where the debt just keeps mounting to the point where it is impossible to repay. Second, when you decide to settle that debt and not pay it, and that 42% is sort of written off, is it big enough and widespread enough to cause havoc, to lead to a market collapse and a systems collapse? I don't know.
True.
So I don't know what it's very. I think when it happens, it'll be very easy to have retrospectively predicted, but this is one of those things which is almost impossible to say what will be that straw that broke the camel's back.
True.
Impossible to say.
And what's the alternative?
Hmm. I think the situation we were before dollar prominence, which is, you remember when we were growing up, there were a lot of foreign currencies which were highly regarded: the yen,
Yeah,
the
pound.
mark, the franc, the pound, everything. पाउंड तो मार्गरेट थैचर ने फिर से करवाया, नहीं तो फिर पाउंड की बहुत बेइज्जती हो चुकी थी मार्गरेट थैचर के पहले. I think people don't remember that also, that
Mhm.
before Margaret Thatcher, the pound wasn't even considered a worthwhile currency. So she kind of almost created the pound, recreated the
Back
pound as
again.
a reserve currency in a sense. So I think we'll go back to that sort of democratized reserve currency situation. But I do not think Digital currency and bitcoins are the future.
My only fear is, if the dollar collapses right now, the only other alternative which comes close to anything else I don't think is worthwhile is the yen, is the yuan. And I don't want that.
Well, look, I don't think, boss, if you think the debt, at least with America, we know what the debt to equity ratio is.
Exactly. We don't know what the
China
hell
has a
China is.
far worse debt to equity ratio. I
Exactly.
think you have to be very stupid to invest in the yuan, number one. I think what I would invest in is gold, because the total amount
Absolutely.
of gold has not increased. At the time of the Roman Empire, the total amount of gold was enough to fill one Olympic sized swimming pool. Even today, with all the expansion of gold mining, industrial gold mining, and all of that, still the total amount of gold can only fill 2.5 swimming pools. Did you know that?
Yep.
Just 2 to 2.5 swimming pools maximum. So it is a very finite amount whose notional value is a universal notional value. Bitcoin is a very self-referential notional value. It's like Pikachu, वो
Mhm.
क्या Horemon, Doraemon, Pokemon,
Pokemon.
that thing. It has great value for kids. But if some kid comes and says, "Uncle, ये लो 10 Pokemon और मैं आपका वो Mercedes लेना चाहता हूँ," I'll give him a tight slap. This is self-referential notional value. Bitcoin's like that. If somebody comes and tells me Bitcoin के लिए मैं तेरा घर खरीदूंगा, I'm like, bugger off, not happening.
नहीं चाहिए.
Gold, yes, I will say. हाँ.
Yeah.
Gold तो मेरे को दे, मैं sure. Gold
Correct.
remains notional value, sure, but universal notional value.
I'm going to take one last question because we're at about 1 hour 30 minutes already, and I don't want you to fall sick or anything like that. Saurabh ji says, "Thank you so much. Firstly, do you think India will ever carry out the threat of stopping water to Pakistan by officially discarding the Indus Water Treaty?"
No, because if we do it, then our upper riparian part, China will do it to us. Now, by itself, actually, most of the water catchment area, 98% of the water catchment area is actually in India. It does not come from
Arunachal.
Tibet. Yeah, but the Tibet flow is very important for replenishing aquifers. Uh, so we will not do it because we don't want it done to us.
Absolutely. By the way, there are so many super stickers which are still there. Dwapan Bose, thank you so much for your contribution. Rahul Ji, Saino Wabi, Leftist Alliance, Vegal Froz, E, Thought Provocator, Surya Shankar, Dr. MPC, and Soham Roy. Thank you all so much. Unfortunately, I'll have to cut the show short. It's already crossed that time because later on, when you guys watch, you all tell me that the show is too long. Cut it short. So, by the way, all of you will be
So
able
what
to watch
happens
in
when you
chat.
cut it short?
Yeah. So I do chapterization after this. Within 24 hours, my shows have chapters, so it's easy for people to watch the segment that they want, and that's easier. So thank you so much, Abhijit, for spending the time, and it's always a fun evening spending time with you. See you next time for another interesting discussion. Till then, Jai Hind.
Thank you. Take care, and please don't forget to send me that Kurusi ka real photo.
I sent it already.
Oh, ठीक. WhatsApp पे.
Message pay.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
All right.
Tata. Bye.